Welcome to season 4 of Outstanding Women Leaders, Witty and Wise Conversations. I'm your host, Katie L. Eads, founder and chief owl at Outstanding Women Leaders, Owl Professional Coaching and Podcast, an organization dedicated to empowering women leaders in relationships, business, and life. Owl is on a mission to host 100 million witty and wise conversations that inspire you, change the way you think, and stir your soul into action. Our inspiration today begins with a set of rules to guide our conversation. Number 1, nobody gets to be wrong. Number 2, nobody gets to be right. Number 3, everybody gets to be vulnerable. And number 4, my favorite, everything is included. So a child walks in, a dog snores, everything's going in the podcast. We do not edit here. This conversation is exactly what it needs to be in this moment in time. We've asked our guests to join us via video to allow us to create authentic connection. Eyes are the window to the soul. You will be seen here. You will be heard. There is space for you. When this conversation comes to a close, I will ask our guests 3 questions. If you've tuned in before, you know what they are. And if you haven't, you don't want to miss them. But enough about me. Today, I'm excited to welcome Outstanding Women Leader, Susie Q. When you combine a knack for numbers, strategy development, mad writing skills, and an ability to simplify complex issues with a massive amount of enthusiasm for empowering women, you get Susie Q, who also is going to write my bio after this. I haven't asked her yet, but she's going to. She's an ex-corporate gal who is the founder of Reinvention Warrior, a coaching and consulting agency based in Knoxville, Tennessee. A transplant from California. I always love to meet people who've made their way to Knoxville. Susie Q teaches high-achieving women how to create transition plans when leaving their corporate careers and how to do it on their own terms. When she found herself unfulfilled in her 16-year corporate career, she developed a blueprint to escape her toxic job in March of 2022 after dreaming about making her leap for several years. Susie Q searched endlessly for strategies other determined women use to make their escape and hit dead ends. But most of her findings were focused on how to build a business and not about the actual journey from wanting to leave a secure career to making a plan to pivot into entrepreneurship. Since she couldn't find a resource, she did the next best thing and designed her own roadmap. She facilitates 12-week group and private coaching programs and is currently developing a companion workbook that guides ambitious women through their transition. Her podcast, Reinvention Warrior, is a top 10% globally ranked show where she teaches driven women how to redefine who they are as they make these massive pivots in their life. As a certified Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer, Susie Q has the knowledge and skills to help you build your own corporate exit plan. Layer in her bachelor's in business management and master's in organizational leadership, and you'll feel confidently equipped to partner with her on your journey to escaping a job you no longer feel aligned with. After becoming a single mom at 4 months pregnant, surviving cancer 1 year later, and almost losing her life in 2019, Susie knows what it takes to face the curveballs life throws at her, and she still finds a way to push forward. She has an uncanny way of finding the silver lining despite the obstacles that come her way, and she loves to armor women with the resources to do that in their own lives. With her love of strategy and passion for helping women reinvent themselves, Susie Q empowers women to unleash their inner warrior. When she's not mentoring women or writing, Susie Q is usually exploring her new town with her husband, daughter, and their lovable, chunky chocolate Labrador, Wonka. I love that name. As a major bookworm, you might find her curled up with a good book and a cozy blanket. With her goofball personality, sarcastic sense of humor, and Latina flair, you can expect corny laughs with a dash of sass. Welcome, Susie Q.
Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate it.
How do we get to Susie Q? Like, how do you get your own theme song here, Miss Susie Q? Where's the Q at? That's not your last name.
I know it's not, but it's something that ever since I was a young girl, I would, introduce myself and say Susie, my name's Susie, and someone would always say, oh, like Susie Q, and it's just stuck ever since. So I don't even know, honestly, where it just originated. I remember always being called that.
I love that you're showing our age a little bit when people that talk to us when we're kids are able to even reference Susie Q. So that
yes, I love it.
So ever since a little kid, you've been reinventing yourself, starting with your last name, because you now go by Susie Q. I love that.
Yes, absolutely.
So, lots of stuff to dive into in your personal story of reinvention. And I love hearing a little bit about as kids, I can talk about my business when I was 12 that I started. Like, tell me a little bit about how you got into reinventing things, including your last name.
Oh my gosh. Well, the last name thing just happens to stick, like I said, as a nickname. So that one's an easy one to answer. Um, but when it comes to my childhood, right? That's what you're asking, is
Mhm.
where that, you know, honestly, I remember a really good childhood when I was growing up. I had both of my parents. And the process of me reinventing myself started to happen. I played sports and I loved who I was playing sports as an athlete. But then my parents started to have some challenges when I was like in my late teens. And I saw what a very like I'm trying to find the polite word, but disgruntled divorce could look like. But unfortunately, it was kind of a violent process, if I'm being completely transparent. And I became like a huge support to my mom in that season. And I remember that being like a pivotal point in my life where it showed me what it meant to be supportive of another woman. And that was my mom, and we had become best friends. But what it meant to be supportive of one another and to uplift each other, because she was in a really difficult season, and it was myself and my baby brother. And she was trying to like grow herself professionally and get an education, like further her, skill sets and knowledge in her career. And I was like, I felt like I stepped in to be like baby mom number two, and I took care of my brother. Like he basically became my baby. And we went everywhere together. Like I have pictures of me being a teenager and having my baby brother with me a lot of the time. And so I love that, part of my life because it got us to be closer. But then I think it emphasized to my mom, you can support me too. Like this works both ways, and it was a mutual exchange. So that was a really pivotal moment in my life to say that I could be there for her and she was there for me. And it really was just a great moment in my life to reflect on.
Yeah, and how cool to see, leadership is about modeling. Like you watched your mom reinvent herself and you
Yes.
saw the power of how when women support each other, that we both are impacted and we both have some reinvention that happens.
Yeah.
How much younger is your brother?
Oh my gosh. So he was born when I was almost 13. So we're
Ah.
12 years apart. Yeah. So literally I was like the dedicated babysitter, right? But it was great because I was dying to have a baby brother or sister. I remember for the longest time asking my parents, like, please have a
Oh
baby.
yeah,
And
I was that same only child. My parents did not oblige. So watching mom reinvent herself, like fast forward, you're in corporate, you're doing corporate stuff. We don't even care about corporate. We're not going to give them too much here. But somewhere along the way, you felt inclined to get a master's in organizational leadership. So I
Yeah.
imagine you were climbing the corporate ladder, so to speak. And then you have this pivotal moment for you. And you almost lost your life. Cancer, mom, share. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I have to rewind a little bit because before I even got into corporate and started that journey, I became a single mom. I was married, had gotten pregnant, and then that all fell apart. And so I was 4 months pregnant with my daughter when I decided it was time to just step away and essentially reinvent myself. I wasn't going to go down the trajectory that path could have led me. Um, with my ex at that time. So I went ahead and made that decision at 4 months pregnant. I'm going to figure out this single motherhood thing and I'm going to raise my daughter because she was the most important thing to me to focus on in that season of my life. And so, about a year after I had her, I ended up getting cancer. So here I am, like a single mom with a little girl, no father figure in her life, by myself. Amazingly, I have my mom as my support system. I still have my family that thankfully I had as my support system. But then I end up with cancer. And thankfully, I mean, I had surgeries and did all the things that I had to do and have been cancer free since then. But it was a scary season, especially thinking you've brought this baby into the world. And if you die, they don't have anyone else in their life that's a parent figure. So that was a really scary moment, but it defined for me how important it was to just keep pushing forward. Like, it didn't matter how bad my situation was. Like, I fell into major financial ruin. My financial situation was terrible during that season. Um, then having cancer and then just trying to pave a path for myself was not an easy thing, trying to juggle all the things. Um, so yeah, so that was another pivotal moment where I had to reinvent myself. And when I made the decision to leave my ex at that time, was I'm becoming a mom and this is my priority. This is what I'm doing. This is my new identity. So that was that season. Then it was, okay, now you're a cancer survivor. All right, new season. And then after that, that's when I got into my corporate role, was actually right before I had gotten cancer. So I was short in my new role or my new journey of corporate world, and had gotten my diagnosis at that time. So that was interesting, but thankfully that all worked out. Move forward, and I was working my way. Like, I started as a temp in my corporate role, so I literally started at the very bottom, very basic, very simple, and worked my way all the way into executive leadership towards the end of my career. But when it comes to my master's, yeah, here I am as a young mom, and I was trying to make more of a successful path for myself and for her and get my education and grow in my career. So I got my bachelor's degree, and then I met my husband now. So then we were together when I was going through part of my studies, which was during my master's program. And yeah, it was just, I kept thinking, one of the things, or should I say, one of my personal philosophies is that if you're not growing, you're basically dying, right? Like, you always have to grow. We always have to evolve. There's always something, not shiny new object syndrome, because that's a whole other can of worms. But I feel like it's always important to grow and have goals to, work towards, or things that we aspire to, that we enjoy. So I love learning, and that's part why I refer to my clients as students sometimes, because I feel like that's what they're doing too, is that they're growing and they're evolving and they're redefining who they are. So it's a transition, right, that we all go through. And that's what I was doing for myself. I was like, if I want to continue going in the path, because when I was in corporate, I thought I would be in corporate forever. That was my goal. I was going to retire there. But then I just wanted to expand my knowledge and my skill set. So I got my master's degree. I went and got my certification through the John Maxwell program. And I'm always like dabbling in some sort of coursework or reading books, expanding my knowledge, because I feel like it's good to have more information and to learn new strategies, to expand beyond where we're currently at. So that journey for me just kept looking like, what's that goalpost? Where is that at next? And so for me, my master's, I even looked into doing my doctorate degree. And then I finally said, okay, but do I really need every certification in the world and every degree? So there's a point where you have to decide what you need based on what your goals are.
Yeah, there's knowledge which you're gathering. I'm always dabbling in knowledge as a lifelong learner.
Yes.
And then there's wisdom, which is the emptying of knowledge and the recognition that we know nothing. So I love the identity work that is what you're really pointing at when we talk about reinvention. It's funny. I think in the bonus episode, I used the word project instead of warrior. My bad. Because I have reinvention project is like one of the, at one point of my website's evolution, I had this reinvention theme going on. And the identity work, when we identify as people with a title at corporate, and this happens. This is that mindset shift that we talked about in our bonus episode together. It's a really great episode. So if you're tuning in still, you should definitely go check out the bonus episode, learn about Susie Q's 12-week program. But mindset, identity work, when we start to identify as just, humans designed to do things that are fun and light us up, that soul identity, even of beyond the humanness. But as we start to identify outside of all of these titles and these qualifiers and, the PhD people, I'm always like, yeah, those PhD folks are not, they come up with their hypothesis and they have to prove it. Like, how is that wisdom? Like, wisdom is, constantly proving yourself wrong and not trying to prove anything to anyone. So I love that your roadmap that you've designed is intentionally designed to fall into potholes. It's like it's intentionally designed to hit speed bumps and roadblocks. And, I picture some like cancer is like the road runner, and the beep beep and the Acme like stuff like, your roadmap is intentionally designed so that when it happens that your brain is like, all right, here we go. We're going to grow through this project. We're going to grow through whatever it is. It's just a very beautiful way to look at life. So I could see why in all your research, you didn't find anything that worked for you, which is why you had to create it yourself. Tell us a little bit about, and I also want to know about your near-death experience. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about how you bring, your own roadmap, so to speak. How do you bring that to your clients?
Well, really, like I shared with you before, is that I think that each one of us is on a unique journey, so my roadmap is not going to look like your roadmap, and the detours and potholes and the random things in the road that you come across are going to look different in your life than they do in mine. So I believe that the roadmap has to cater to our needs and has to cater to what we are experiencing, because we all have different experiences and different backgrounds. And, if you're looking in the rear view mirror constantly, like, when are you looking forward and looking ahead? So that's one of the things that I try to really help guide my clients is, let's start looking forward and let's design a plan that works for you, for your needs, for your family, for whatever your goals are. Because I truly believe that it's unique, and that I could sit here and write you a roadmap that's generic. And then you say, well, that just doesn't work for me. I don't have a family, or I do have a family, and this is for someone that doesn't have to account for those responsibilities, and so I really, truly believe that it's an opportunity to get to know each person individually when I'm going through this process with them, and to help them map out based on what they need or require for their own life.
Yeah. So you provide the roadmap and I provide the surf. So I teach people how to surf. I always talk about, tell me about your water. How does your water flow? And
I love that.
Well, my water, I love when someone's like, I've never had a good note-taking system, and they're 40. And I'm like, great, tell me about the one you have. So like we can help it work for you, but we're not going to redirect the stream. Like, we're not a beaver. We're not building a dam. Like, let's just find out how you want to flow, and then let's allow it to work. So I love that if you want to cruise your career somewhere, like Susie Q is going to get you there, whichever way your car wants to drive, right?
Yes.
And if you want to surf the soul and your purpose there, you come see me. I love this. I see future collabs for us.
Most definitely.
I have to know, do you know about human design as a framework?
I've heard of it, but I am not familiar with it. No,
right. I've already pegged you, and I think you're in my club. It's a very special club. We'll talk offline again.
Okay,
before I get you're totally a 5-1. I just know it. There it is. I claimed it, universe. Funny. I actually claimed that for a client once, and it came back not.
Oh, really?
And I sent it to her, and then she wrote back and she said, she's like, this is the wrong birth date. And I go, get out of here. I looked at my notes. I just written down the wrong birth date, and the wrong birth date I wrote down was her grandmother's birth date.
Oh.
When I fixed it, she was a 5'1". So
That's
I'm
funny.
never wrong about people. I am wrong about numbers. So before as we wrap up, I want to know a little bit about, nothing reinvents someone like coming face to face with their maker. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your insights that you've learned there.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a very scary season of my life. And it was honestly just a very sudden thing. So I actually hemorrhaged internally in the middle of the night in my home and didn't know it happened until I literally collapsed off of my bed and my husband found me and had to call for an ambulance.
Wow.
And so that was in late 2019, right before the pandemic happened. So here I was at home trying to recover from all this trauma that my body had just endured. And, and you're sitting home alone for a while because everyone has to keep going on with their normal life, even though you're in recovery mode. And you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? And then the pandemic hits. So I was just trying to get back to work as the pandemic was coming full swing, right? And I sat there thinking, is this what I want for my life? Like I just had this near death experience, and I know that I want so much more for my life and for my family. Is this what I want? And I had already known, I had kind of tinkled with different business ideas and played in different like business opportunities that were kind of random at the time just for fun. They were more fun things than anything else. They weren't like a true business idea. And at that time, I was just like, I need to do something more and different at this point and redefine who I am, really, reinvent who I am in this season, in this part of my life. And also, our daughter was like near the end of her high school journey, too. So it's like, well, pretty soon we're going to be empty nesters, and what is that picture going to look like? Is this what I want to do? Is just show up day in and day out to a job that I feel unfulfilled in? I feel like my values and my beliefs are compromised almost daily. Enough's enough. And so, between my near death experience and the pandemic and all the shifting of like working from home, it really opened up my eyes that this is a time to do it. This is a time to get serious about it. So then I designed my roadmap, to like figure out how do we make this happen strategically and realistically, financially. All those pieces came into play at that time. And I was just able to sit there and, like my strategy was pay off all debt and like be very serious about it, and set money aside for emergencies and set money aside for building my business. And so I went through this very strategic, regimented process to help me get there, and then just learn from other business owners and what that was going to be like back in 2019, 2020. So
They
yeah,
didn't
so it
know
was
back
just a
then what it
journey.
was going to be like.
Exactly. Yeah. No one knew the big trajectory change, right? That everyone was going to face.
That's right. It's just an incredible story. And I love that you talk about everything as seasons. We all know the song, there's a season, turn, turn. And one thing we can count on in our life is that the seasons will change.
Absolutely.
And so will I. We
Yes.
need
Yes.
not
It's a
wonder
constant.
why if I'm really going to lean into this song right now. And that's really what it is for you. I imagine that there's probably some behind the scenes, maybe grappling occasionally of why did this happen? But then there's this also the roadmap of how do we create from what's happened? How do we create with what's happening, and not being a
Absolutely.
passenger in the car, but still being able to drive it, even if, you're got to pull over and take some naps because there's a speed bump.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny that you say that because that's one of the things that I say very often is, are you sitting in the driver's seat of your life, or are you just a passenger hitching a ride? And on that road trip and when you're building your roadmap, I really believe that you have to armor yourself up with, the resources, the knowledge, the tools, and not just like blindly dive into it. So that's one of the things that I really like to hit on is, how do you prepare yourself and armor yourself, right? You gear yourself up with all these things so that you can make it be a successful transition for you and your circumstances.
Yeah. And then I like to, I like to upgrade people to a limo so that they can sit in the back seat.
Ooh.
And they allow their soul to do the driving, and they allow their backseat passenger, their brain, to do the planning with their
Yes.
feet up, right? This is really how we're meant to live, guys. We're
I
all meant
love
to live
it.
this life of luxury. So our 3 questions, we are here, and we will be quick with these 3 questions as we both have to go other places. What's your superpower?
My superpower is finding the silver lining, no matter what curveballs life is throwing my way.
Mm-hmm. What's your purpose?
That one's a good one. My purpose is to empower women to believe in themselves and to blaze their own path.
What's next for you?
Right now, what's next is I'm creating a workbook to help women design their roadmaps. So it's a fun project that I'm working on right now that I actually right in front of me. I'm looking at it. It's sitting here for me to edit and play some more. And it's just been a fun creative process that I have blended with my strategic mind. And so it's a really cool combination of the two. So that's what's new.
Is there maybe a human design and a future conversation for you in your what's next with me?
Yes, I would love that. And
I
me
want
working on
you.
your bio. Me
I
working on your
Oh yeah,
bio.
my bio, my never ending bio. I'm one of those people
Yes,
that wants to reinvent my bio all the time, even though it keeps working. Like somehow, like if I just reinvent it, it'll work even better, but it's still
right.
really, it works very well. I just, I like to tinker. That's how I know you're a 5-1. We even use the word tinker.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Empowering women. We have a shared mission. We have a shared cause in the podcast world. So thank you for contributing to that space and bringing more women's voices to life there. If someone asked me what was next, I would say following up with Susie Q to have a cup of coffee, because I know she's in my club and we're meant to hang out
Yes,
with each other. So as we wrap
absolutely.
up today, I'm giving you the last word because that's what I do for my guests. What would you like to leave people with today?
I would just like to leave them with the reminder that not to give up, no matter what curveballs or challenges that might come their way. There's always going to be obstacles to overcome, and just dig deep within yourself to remind yourself that you matter, you're important, and don't give up. Just keep pushing forward and reach out if you ever need to. Find that support. There's always someone there that's willing to give you a hand. So don't give up and keep pushing forward.